Boots and cats
Huh?
and boots and
Listener question.
Get it.
That was all right, man. I'm impressed.
Can you talk us through the actual development of a tyre and where it starts? I know it's a massive topic, but kind of in a timeline perspective, how long it takes to do these things. And obviously, Goodyear not only is one of the only brands that has been on the moon, has a Zeppelin, we also have our own factory. So I think it's quite unique to talk to you about, developing a tyre. You're really actually developing a tyre.
Yeah, so I guess as a starting point, we have a bicycle specific tyre factory which is 100% devoted to the development and production of the Goodyear bicycle range, which is pretty unique in the bicycle space. In fact, it's very unique in the bicycle space.
So what would happen, in not naming any names, but like other brands, what would be the process?
So in that process, we call that offtake production. So essentially what happens is a brand comes to a tyre factory and says, basically, I want to produce some tyres with this brand on the side.
Yeah.
And then that tyre factory they can do a number of things. They can even develop the tyre for them from the ground up in some instances. But when that normally happens, it's sort of second tier technology, because ultimately no one wants to produce at the same level that they're producing at, because where's the value, right? So they'll even offer tread drawings sometimes for some customers, but normally a customer will come with tread drawings that they've already kind of got designed and developed, and then that tyre factory will then provide them with a host of different kind of construction and compound options that they can then use to produce that tyre and bring it to market. Where I suppose we're different, and this obviously exist. There are some other tyre brands doing this, but where we're slightly different is that what will happen is we'll look at our current range. We'll say, okay, well, this is where we think we need a tyre. This is kind of what we see as its intended purpose. We'll come up with some benchmark items that we kind of say, well, this is kind of the product. This is an area or a category that we want to kind of go after. These are the kind of leading tyres in that range currently, or in that sector of the market. And then we'll kind of go to our R&D department and explain, this is what we want. These are the kind of like 3 or 4 important features that we want it to have, and how we want it to perform. And then they'll come back to us with kind of unique tread drawings based on, these are like super smart people that understand all of this stuff. They understand what each knob does, how it reacts with the dirt, how it, stuff that's way over my head.
Yeah.
I've got a very, very basic understanding of it, but not enough to do it properly. And then we'll look at a number of tread options, like tread pattern designs. We'll then have them produced in molds. Often we'll have them 3D printed, so we can actually look at them in the flesh before we even go any further. So we can look at it, see what it would look like blown up, and say, okay, well, in theory, this would work because of X, Y, and Z reasons, and it wouldn't because of these reasons.
So that's just a small segment of a tyre, right? To our listeners, that's not a whole tyre you're talking about.
No,
something,
it's
is it? Or 3D
like
printing.
This amount. Yeah.
That's right. So at this stage, it's
right.
like a guessing game. You're just looking at something and imagining riding it, right?
Mm-hmm. And then moving on from that stage, we'll take a number of those molds that we think would work. We'll have them sort of produced in a basic construction and compound that we know does work, that worked on existing sort of products. And then we'll test those back to back with what exists in the market already, and then we'll look to refine things like compound. We can then refine the tread pattern itself, depending on how that reacts when you actually ride it. And then we'll also update the construction of the tire as well. So there's a number of different sort of materials that you can put into a tire to make it react differently, make it do different things. So, for example, you can put an apex or a butyl insert into the sidewall of the tire to stop it from the tire from like bottoming out on the rim. You can put in under tread, so you can put in depending on what you want to achieve, you can put in either Kevlar, or you can put in nylon, or you can put in butyl underneath the tread to again provide additional puncture protection. But then the more things you put in, the more it adjusts the way the tire rides. So it's a really finite kind of like mixture of materials, and that's kind of just from a riding perspective, let alone what happens at a factory level before you get there. You're talking about lots and lots of time doing compound testing, looking at the way like the different layups, the different kind of mixtures of materials kind of react to the development process. Also, like lead times of a product, just actually the amount of time it takes to produce that tire on the drum. It's so vast. It's such a vast topic, and it's really difficult to kind of like give you a linear timeline and without sort of jumping all over the place.
I think
so many different things react.
I think the mold moment, to me personally, is like a pivotal moment, and the reason is a mold. So to people, the mold itself is very expensive to produce, and it's what makes testing, certainly with like rubbers, very difficult, doesn't it? Because once you have a mold, you've created this. You call it you're tooling up. So you're making this. What is it? A giant CNC negative of the tire shape.
Correct. Okay. Exactly. Yeah.
So you're making this giant CNC negative without actually knowing or actually having ridden the tyre. And that's every brand across the board. There's a moment where you just sort of like, you have to dive in, you have to create this tool and go from there. The cool thing about having a factory, I guess, is that we can also modify the tool. I'm just speaking from the development of these tyres. It was really cool to feed back on something and hear that you'd had the same thing, or, like things got changed, and that's really difficult.
Well, yeah, I mean, we even had to scrap. We had to scrap 2 molds.
Yeah, like, and how much does that cost? Can you even talk about approximately? Maybe not. It's so much money. It's eye-watering amounts.
Let's say an approximate. Ben. We'll do a very much approximate.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
Ollie knows how much. I don't think you do, Davey. Davey, have a guess, and I'll tell you higher or lower.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm going to say for a mould, we're going to be talking $35,000.
Wow. No, not that much. No.
Okay.
No, it's about a third of that.
Okay, all right. Still a lot of money. I went high. I highballed.
You just go chucking them out. Yeah. No,
yeah, you don't just go throwing them around. Even for a brand like Goodyear, it's noticeable, isn't it?
No, so it's really expensive, particularly when you have to scrap it. That's the end of it.
And time consuming.
You might weigh it in and get a couple of quid back, but that's a lot of time, money, raw material, that you don't want to be wasting down the drain. So,
and is there just one mould? Or do you have multiple so you can produce more tyres more efficiently?
So at this stage, at the R&D stage, we will just pick like one size to develop,
right? Okay.
Which is normally like so for example, with the Newton, we did the 29 2.5 at the front and the 29 2.4 at the rear, just because that is the most popular size. That's the size that all of our riders had bikes for. So it made sense to kind of roll with that. But obviously then once we get into mass production, now you're talking multiple molds per size.
Okay.
Yeah, so it gets pretty pricey.
Yeah, I seen the list of different ones and I was like, holy, I didn't even know what to choose. There's that many of them. It's deep.
So once you've taken the plunge, sorry, Davey. Once you've taken the plunge, you're only one step closer, really, aren't you? You then have all of those other variables that you talked about before a second ago: butyl inserts, sidewall thickness, compound numbers, even something called Mooney, which you explained to me.
Yes, I did. So everyone talks about, when you talk about compound, most people understand it as a Sure value, but there's so much more that goes into it.
So Sure is durometer, right? So that's hardness.
Correct.
So that's
that's I guess everyone knows Sure. I say everyone. Most people know Sure just because like Maxxis used to write on the side of their tyres. So they used to have like the Slow Reezy, which I think was a 40A, which is like a super soft rubber. And then they had the Super Tacky, which was a 42A. So that's kind of given everyone the baseline of like an understanding of what the Sure value is. But there's so much more that goes into it, and Mooney is one of those things, and that is it's quite complicated. That it's just another property of the rubber which needs to be considered, and in fact it's actually probably in many instances more important than Sure, because it's like it gives us a value for like the amount that the knob can sort of twist, and that is imperative when we consider, like, because you can have a really soft rubber that doesn't necessarily twist and deform the way that you want it to. Mooney allows you to kind of have a better understanding of kind of the way that the rubbers are gonna interact when they're put under load. And then the other thing is you can have whatever Sure value you want rubber when it's sort of uncured, but you could cure a 40A rubber on paper to be rock solid if you wanted to. So it's sort of, to some extent, totally irrelevant until it's been cured anyway. And so that's one thing. Again, this is just another like tangent I could go down, but I won't, about the amount that we then consider how long we cure the tyres for. So that's basically our cooking process, if you like, and that changes like dramatically depending on what tyre we're producing, and for what the intended use is. So it's the whole process is vast. It's probably 15 to 20 stages in production. You're looking at anywhere up to 20 different like individual pieces of material that go into any one tire. So it really does. It's not just firing in some rubber into a mold and chucking it out.
Best.
Yeah, it's really vast.
So what stage did you get involved, Ollie? So you rode the original Newtons, for a bit, is that right? And then, so at what stage did you jump into this development process, and how have you? Well, I want to know all of it really. Well, how have you managed to keep consistent and keep testing it?
Yeah, well, Ben will send me. Okay, so to start with, obviously you're just feeding back on every product you ride, full stop. Whether that is like what we were talking about earlier, the opinion feedback. So the bar rise needs to be higher, or it's too stiff, or the tyre is whatever. Whether it's opinion or whether it's just real life experience, you're feeding back the whole time anyway. And obviously, I was told we were going to redevelop the Newton, which was called something different then, and what things I would change on it. So first of all, Goodyear had a list of things from all of the riders, not just me, all of the people that ride the tyres. They had a list of things that if we were going to change, that's what we would change. So that was the first bit of feedback. Then I guess the next time I came in was, I was involved, was probably actually really early drawings, I think, Ben. Is that right? I remember you sending me a load of drawings.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was before mould time. So we hadn't we hadn't tooled up or anything then, and it was just Ben kind of, as a rider, you're shared like these images, and thankfully, because I've worked in product development in the past, I can look at it and it's not completely alien to me. I can understand things. And
is this the first tyre you've developed though? Like
no, it's not.
Okay.
Previously developed tyres, obviously with DMR, it's a dirt jump tyre. It's very different. It's to be honest, a lot easier. Like what you've just heard from Ben, the amount of variables in a performance mountain bike tyre is kind of insane. And like road is the same, but it's easier to replicate road scenarios off-road. So I feel like mountain bike's so much about constant product testing and feedback and stuff. That, it becomes very complicated, and it's much harder than a dirt jump one for sure.
Okay.
So Ben shared with me all the way through drawings, ideas. I think it's been really cool actually in that sense, like just being able to. I really enjoy being part of the process. I really enjoy talking about it and like hearing your ideas, because quite often I might have an opinion. Let's say, for instance, this tyre is too soft, it's wearing down quickly. It could also be that the tyre is too hard, that it's wearing down quickly. And my brain wouldn't instantly, my brain is wired to think wearing down quick, too soft. But it's not necessarily the case, and sometimes you have to have someone else there to just tell you that, and you learn a lot, I think, through developing. So anyway, then I get mould samples that were, quite frankly, they were not that useful, because a lot of them would be not the final sidewalls. They would be thin as anything, and they'd have these big knobs. They would just be to check the mould for imperfections, have a look at it, and just start to get feedback. So, I think I had a Newton MTR in single wall, and you start to just build a picture of what you're looking at and what the improvements are and what things are changing. And then each step of the way, and sometimes it'll be like such a minor change, and Ben will send it to me and it'll be a 2 compound, different geometer, whatever. And to be honest, I won't notice anything, and I'll feed that back, and you'll be like, yeah, cool. But we won't. But also, there's also that kind of riding it the whole time. You get feedback on how the dual compound will work in terms of wear, and you get feedback, not just the opinion feedback, the real time feedback. So
and that's right. And a lot of the time, it's not necessarily like I'll send something to Ollie, and I'm not necessarily looking for, and I won't tell him what I'm looking for, because that's that leads you down a garden path already. It puts your mind looking for something specific. So if I just say, here's another set of tyres, just let me know how they go. And then after a couple of months, I'll be like, okay, I need to message Ollie and get some pictures of the tyres, because I'll know that my hope is, okay, well, the performance is the same. And then what we're really looking for is longevity. So he'll then send a picture, and I'll be like, how many Ks have you done on that? And he'll be like, I think. And then if, we're hoping that it's going to be, in the thousands, and that there's still a good amount of tread left, and we're like, okay, sweet, we're in a good spot. So that's Conor McFarlane's particularly good at that. He puts on insane numbers on his e-bike. And so, he's been one that's really, really good for just putting in huge amounts of kilometers, because he'll just ride to the jumps and then ride back into Queenstown and go up to Frankton, and just all over the place on his e-bike. And then I think with e-bikes, you've got the computers, can't you? So they can tell you how many kilometers you've actually racked up. Yeah. And then he'll be like, oh yeah, we've done 2,500 kilometers on this tire. And I'm like, oh, amazing. That's unreal. So it's all of these little bits of info that we keep collecting, just to kind of make sure, and we are where we want to be. And it's one of the reasons it's taken us at least 2 years in development to get these tyres into mass production, because we wanted to make sure we got it right.
Boots and cats and
Listener questions. That was all right, man. I'm impressed. Did you enjoy this clip? If so, please like and subscribe. The full episode is available by hitting one of the links on the screen right now, or type the Ride Companion into your favourite podcast app. We've even put links in the show description for you. Cheers!